Well, let's take a moment to jump back into the emails.
Yeah, Christy, do you want to take one?
Yeah, I've got one here. Okay. This is my 5th attempt at a message because I want to get to my point and also not come off as an a-hole and a bigot.
Oh, dear.
But,
no.
It's a concern. But it is slowly dawning on me that I need to be rather blunt. For the record, these are not my opinions. These are opinions I keep coming across from others when trying to discuss any sort of sexual roleplay. The next several passages are in quotation marks. People who engage in pet play, well, they just want to simulate bestiality. People who engage in age play, well, they just want to simulate pedophilia. People who engage in BDSM relationships, well, the bottom clearly has suffered some sort of trauma and someone needs to save them from someone who clearly derives pleasure from inflicting pain in others. That top should be locked away because clearly they could not feasibly be a productive member of society.
Oof.
Yeah. So the writer says, again, those are not my opinion, but, well, I do kind of see where people who say those things might be coming from. I don't agree with them, but I see where they're coming from.
Lots of cushioning there.
Yeah, I really hope I captured the tone in my dramatic reading.
That was beautiful.
Well, I have to say the quotation marks are doing a lot of heavy lifting there, aren't they? Like it definitely it comes across a little bit. But yeah, I have to say that when I see these kinds of questions, especially when they are seemingly coming from sort of a bad faith position, it really does concern me because I think that people need to recognize that our thoughts, our dreams, our fantasies, our fears, our nightmares, these kinds of emotions aren't necessarily under our control. And that doesn't say anything about who we are as people. You know, there's such a difference between wanting to fantasize about some of these experiences like consensual non-consent, or play video games like Call of Duty where we're murdering, watching movies like John Wick where there's violence, wanting to express that emotion or feel that feeling in some kind of way is not at all akin to wanting to actually act out abuse or harm on somebody else. How do y'all kind of just like stomach all of this? Like, how does it just hit you in your nervous system?
Yeah, I mean, I think that in another life, I would have been compelled by these comments. Like, I aggressively conservative household. And so for me, there is definitely that initial, oh, that's weird. Something's happening.
Yeah, so there is that.
But essentially what I'm saying here is we could use that same logic to do something like blame because they like to experience what it's like to almost die by falling off a cliff. Like, why do we do anything that we do? It's to stimulate our nervous systems, right? And it's to give us the ability to feel things that otherwise we wouldn't feel or get to experience. And sex is no different. It's just another thing that we're doing in order to experience things. And of course, that requires consent. But as long as that consent is there, then I really don't see the need to worry about what internal motivation someone might have for a particular kink. It's their kink. No shame here.
Mm-hmm.
Like the writer, I too think I know where they are coming from. They are coming from a visceral reaction where they have, let us call it a trigger to certain activities. And naturally, when something triggers that because of some appearance of hilarity, well, it will simply cause one to feel that aversion. So naturally, one must push back against it, must one? Isn't that how you people do things? You fear them and then you push against them.
I feel like death has been pushed quite a bit. Sounds like. I think.
Well, it's fair to say some of this can be uncomfortable. You know, I want to be gentle and kind when we recognize that the recent episode we did exploring age play definitely pushed a lot of buttons. And I hope that we handle that sensitive material in a responsible way while informing people and seeking to destigmatize these things, while recognizing that it can be pretty uncomfortable in a culture that is not well equipped to have these conversations.
Also, it's worth noting that the BDSM community in general and a lot of these roleplay, kink communities have such a better understanding of consent and negotiation and autonomy than what we would consider to be vanilla or pretty mainstream traditional sex. There is so much more conversation happening. There is so much more respect for boundaries and conversation about what you liked, what you didn't like, what we should do next time. Let's work up to this, or let's try that. It feels like if you're coming at it from a perspective of, well, I don't really talk about sex with my partners, therefore they probably don't, and then this could enter into dangerous territory. You're right. This kind of thing shouldn't be done without negotiation and consent and communication. But you have to understand there's a very different culture around these communities where that is constantly talked about and constantly scrutinized to make sure that everybody is comfortable and having a good time.
Yeah, those are incredible points. I just want to, I think, highlight that the best way to have safe sex, how we choose to define that, is to be in community, to be actively engaging with other people in conversation about what feels safe, about what feels appealing, about what feels right. And I think that that is very different than the way that we are encouraged or raised in this country. And I want to be mindful of that. I'm not necessarily saying that everybody needs to go to work tomorrow and ask their boss about their sex life, but I also want to encourage people, even if very few of the things we talk about on this show, kink and BDSM and pet play and these different kinds of ideas don't interest you, I hope that you still find other avenues and outlets and opportunities to talk about your sexuality, whether that's incredibly vanilla or something that's potentially a little bit more dangerous or challenging.